Hey class, in today's lesson we're going to solve systems using matrices, which is found in section 3-6 of your book. Our objectives are to represent a system of linear equations with a matrix and to solve a system of linear equations using matrices. So I skipped example 1 because all we were doing was identifying elements of a matrix. So just so that I can kind of write that out so that you know what I'm talking about. All right, let's say we have a matrix and it says 2, 1, 3, 4. Okay? The amount of rows are horizontal, okay? And columns are vertical. So rows are horizontal, columns are vertical. So I would rewrite this if I wanted to know how it's written. This is when you write it, you would say row by column. So this would be a 2 by 2. Okay? Let me give you another example. Let's say we have another matrix and it looks like this: 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 4. Okay? Rows again go this way, columns go down. So this would be a 3 by 2. Okay? And so when we write our elements, so when we wanted to identify our elements, for example, we would name those based off of the places that they are in the matrix. So for example, 3, we would call it whatever row it is. So this would be element row 1. So that's 1. And then the column is also 1. So that would be called E11. The next one, for example, or this one over here, the number 4, that would be E for element, and the row would be the second row, third column. So that one would be called E23. But we won't really name very often. We will just actually say what the numbers are, but that is just for your information. So let's go ahead and actually start with the work. Okay. Well, apparently I can't erase that, so that's okay. It says, how can you represent the system of equations with the matrix? So when we write a matrix, first of all, our matrix will be represented. So let's ignore that because I can't erase it. Sorry. We would have an X, Y, and then our answers go on the end. So I would say whatever the number is. And this would also line up and be X, Y, and then whatever the number is. Okay? So on the first one, our answer will be, because everything's already lined up perfectly, we would write 2, the coefficient for Y is 1, and then its answer is 9. On the bottom, I would have a coefficient of 1, -6 for the Y, and the answer is -1. So I'm done there. On the second one, however, everything is not in order. The first equation is fine, the second equation is fine, but the last one is not because you have a variable, right, on the incorrect side. I need to move that -5x to the side with all the variables by adding 5x. So this equation should be 5x plus y equal to 1. So when I rewrite this one, remember the first one, the coefficient is 1, so that's 1. Then -3 for the y, 1 for the z, and the answer will be 6. The next one, for that equation, there's a 1 for the x, 3 for the z. I lied. There is no z next, right? It should be x, y, z. And notice there is no y. So y would be 0. Z is 3. Our answer is 12. And the last one, where we have 5x plus y equals 1, the x is 5. The y is 1. There is no z, so I would put 0, and then our answer is 1. Okay, so that's how we represent a system as matrices. So let's practice that again, hopefully with a neater background. Okay, remember, the first thing you want to check is to make sure that everything is written in order. So the first one, I have an x, y, and number. Then I have an x, y, and a number. So when I decide to write that as a matrix, that's going to be 4, -2, 7, and then 3, 1, -5. Okay, for the second one, again, we want to check and make sure that everything's in order before we write the matrix. The first equation, I have an x, a y, and a z on the same side. The second one, I have a y and a z on the same side. But in the last equation, the y is on the incorrect side, so we need to move y over by adding it. So I have y plus 2x equals 7. So to write this matrix, I have 4, -1, 2. The answer is 1. There is no x in the second equation, so it's 0, then 1, 5, and 20 as the answer. And then the last one, I should have put that in order, but the x is 2, the y is 1, there is no z, and the answer is 7. All right, now we're going the other way. We're writing a system now from a matrix. So the deal is, whenever you have a matrix of this form, you will always start out with x. You could also do A, B, and C. Either way, it should be in alphabetical order. And what we're seeing here is that there are two variables, right? So whatever those two variables are, and then your answer column, which is the number. So I'm going to choose x and y. Okay, so my first equation should be 5x plus 2y equal to 7. And the last one, I wouldn't write anything for x because there is no x represented, so I would just say y equals 9. And that would be our system. And we're actually done. Try 3, we would do the same thing. So again, we're going to start out with our matrix and then write our system. So we have 2x, no y, is equal to 6. And then the other one should be 5x minus 2y equal to 1. And so that should be our system. All right, so in example 5, we're going to use a calculator to solve a linear system. It makes it a lot easier than to solve it by hand. So again, the first thing you need to do though is to set it up as a matrix, putting everything in order where it's supposed to be. So the first thing I want to check is to make sure that all my variables are on the same side, which they are. And then be sure that if there are any gaps that you represent those gaps with zeros. But anyway, to rewrite it, the first row, if I write my coefficients, I should have 2, 3, -1, and 1. The next one should be -4, 9, 2, and 8. And the last one, I have a -2 for A. There is no B, so it's 0. 2 for C, and then 3 is my answer. Now, here's the deal. At this point, I'm going to give you or kind of walk through the steps on your calculator, but technically I have a calculator hack sheet that you should be following along. But basically, to be able to input this into your calculator, I'm talking about a TI-84, you'll press the second button and then x to the -1, which is also the same thing as the matrix button. You'll go over to the edit heading. And then at this point, you can either choose a dimension or you can create a new one and then press enter. So we're going to create a new one. So let's say, actually, let's not create a new one. Just choose one. So let's choose whatever A is and fix the dimensions. Okay, the dimensions may have, like, for example, a 2 by 2 already listed, and they'll be blinking. Well, not both of them. One will be blinking. So to be able to edit them, remember this is when you talk about your rows by columns here, there are 3 rows and there are 4 columns. So you want to change that 2 to a 3, press enter, change the next number to a 4 and press enter. After you've done that, it will allow you to input your elements. Remember, the elements are each number, right? And so, for example, to type in our elements, we would say 2, then enter, and it'll go across. So 2, then enter, 3, then enter, -1, then enter, 1, then enter. After you press enter, it'll go down here to -4. So you'll type them all in. After they are all typed in, now we need to be able to solve it. So to solve it, you're going to use a function called RREF, and it has a parentheses. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. You would go to, because you need to get out of this, so you need to go to second mode so that you can exit. So second mode. And then to be able to start solving the system, you will press second x to the -1, which is the same thing as matrix. So we're going back into the matrix part. You will go over to the math heading and go down to this RREF and press enter. Now at this point, it's asking you, okay, I'm going to do this operation, but for what matrix? Remember, in the beginning, we named a matrix. So the first one that you named was probably A. So you'll go back in now and do second x to the -1, which is matrix. And then find the correct letter. So we chose the first one initially, so you'll press A and enter. So now it should look like on your screen RREF parentheses. The A should be in a matrix like. And then you'll press enter again. And your answer should be, let me find it, just one second. Your answer should be, and it should look like this. You should have 1, 0, 0, 1/2, or 0.5, depending on if it's in decimal form. Then you should have 0, 1, 0, 2/3. And then finally you should have 0, 0, 1, 2. As an answer, what that means is that your solution is 1/2, 2/3, 2, right? Because there are 3 variables, so this is your point. That is your solution. Okay, again, you should go through that same process. I won't give you the steps here to go through the process. Just listen back to the last one. However, I will tell you the answer here so that you can check yourself and make sure that you've done it correctly. But your answer here should be 1, 1/2, 3. And again, that would have looked like as a matrix on your calculator. It should have been 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1/2, and then 0, 0, 1, 3. Remembering that that final column is actually your answer. All right, guys, that's it. Be sure that you do your homework. If you have any questions, ask me when I see you in class.